Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident sculler who's respected by your peers. Become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caroe, and I'm joined by Marlene Royal.
Hello, Rebecca, and hello to our masters.
It's nearly winter for you, isn't it, Marlene?
It's snowing. Yes, it's snowing as I speak.
It's pissing with rain here as I speak, but it's warm. I have short sleeves, look.
It's okay.
The seasons move.
Yeah,
and I kind of like that in a way. It's sort of the cycle of the seasons is important for me, but it also, I think, gives you an opportunity to reflect. I find that in my own life, one of the things I love is the change of food as you go through from one to another, you know, what's in the shops.
Definitely. I'm for sure a high-level peasant cook, so I always buy what's seasonal and what's local. But I love this time of year. I mean, for me, it's the end of my on-water coaching for this year, and because I'm not in Florida as I am sometimes. And I'm home, and I'm actually I'm really looking forward to the winter because, you know, we have things that we're working on. We have our Faster Masters projects. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, I just feel like you can just, you know, it's great to just sit down and get into a routine. And that's, you know, when you're so busy on the water in the summer and doing lessons and this, that, getting your own workout in, trying to do your work. You know, you don't always have a typical routine every day, but in the winter, I have a real definite routine. And, you know, I'm just looking forward to the fact that I don't have to go, nor can I go anywhere, but I don't have to go anywhere. And I'm just going to enjoy working on my stuff. You know, I'm psyched about it.
That's fantastic. And hello to all of our live watchers. Remember, if you're watching live through one of the live streams, you can put comments below the live stream and join in the conversation with us. And we obviously very much welcome people who are here with us live on air. We have a welcome from Cece from the very windy, still Whidbey Island. I think the weekly weather report from Whidbey is kind of cute.
Oh, Whidbey is such a beautiful place. They have these high bluffs, and across the strait is Port Townsend, which is a really nice Victorian town on Puget Sound. I've coached there numerous times, but the wind in North America has been incredible this week. I think all the way from the west across Ontario, New York State, to us, I mean, we have had 60, 70, 80-kilometer winds the past 2 days with power outages and things. So the wind has just been the biggest factor. And I think that's a huge factor due to climate change, I think, is the change in the wind.
They definitely aligned the increase in hurricanes this year to global heating.
The Gulf of Mexico is warmer than usual, and the hurricanes develop when the ocean and the Gulf have to cool. So, so that definitely... Sea temperature has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we have a few sponsors, as ever, for whom we're extremely grateful. There's a rowing retailer directory. If you've ever wondered how many different rowing shoe companies there are or where to find gifts for the holidays, there's now a rowing directory compiled into 16 different categories, from oars to ergs, coaches to repairs to photographers to gifts. You're guaranteed to find what you're looking for, and it's all at rowing.chat/retailer. Have a browse around. If you are a rowing business and you'd like to get yourself a listing, please get in touch and we'll send you a link so you can upload your details. And our second sponsor is my Rowing Tales 2020 book. I don't have a physical copy yet, but when I do, you can be sure I'll be showing it to you. This is an anthology that I have now done for 4 years, when I ask people to send me anecdotes, little stories about rowing, and some of them slightly longer stories about rowing from all around the world. And I have some awesome, awesome stories. I will share an actual one with you next week. The book is published in Amazon now, and I will shortly reveal where you can bulk buy direct from me at a discount, particularly if you want to buy one copy of all of the editions. Now, quick reminders what we have coming up on our calendar. November 24th, so next week's podcast is a private podcast only for people who are signed up to our Transitioning to Winter Training seminar. We're calling it a masterclass. And if you're already on the Faster Masters newsletter, you will get the link sent to you. If not, you can sign up at fastermastersrowingwinter.eventbrite.co.nz. And we already have, I think, nearly 40 people signed up. So that's awesome. And we look forward to having a load more of you. What are you going to learn on the masterclass? How to avoid injury, ways to stay focused and motivated through winter training, technical improvements, a review of your past season, setting new goals, and changing modalities. After you've listened to the masterclass, you will know what you have to change in your training practice. You'll understand how to measure progress, and you'll have 5 strategies to keep motivated. We will be recording the masterclass, so if you're not available at the time of the live broadcast, we'll send you a link afterwards so you can watch it.
Yes, we're going to talk about the U.S. Rowing Conference, which is coming up on December 8th, and it's a virtual event. For the people who are U.S. Rowing members, there is a fee that you can join the entire 5-day conference and have access to all of the talks, and the recordings will be available for 6 months. Or you can buy a day pass for just the individual days that you're interested in. And there's also an option for non-US rowing members, and the registration is on Regatta Central. So if you go to Regatta Central US Rowing Conference, you'll find that information listed. And I'm speaking on day 2, which is December 9th, and that's a day that's devoted to training. And there's a whole host of excellent speakers that day, including Dr. Stephen Seiler, who is a physiologist who's an American, but works in Norway. And he's very well known for his work on endurance training. And he's done, actually, Rebecca has done a chat with him on power and rowing. And I think that is available on RowingChat. If you search that in YouTube, there's Dr. Stephen Seiler's talk about that. Dr. Stuart McGill will be talking, and he is a leading expert on back research, and he works with a number of elite athletes, including rowers. In fact, his wife is a very, very well-known masters rower, Catherine Barr McGill. And Will Ruth, Joe DeLeo, and Blake Gorley are also going to be doing a talk on unlocking the mysteries of strength training. And my talk is a master's topic about training for life, as well as Karen Kalara will be also talking. So it's really going to be a terrific day. And at the end of the day, there's a panel discussion with all of the presenters, a question and answer session. So it's going to be there's a day devoted to coaching. There's a day devoted to inclusivity and diversity, which is free of charge for anybody who would like to go. And the whole schedule is on the usrowing.org website because it's quite detailed. So definitely take a look at it. And I think the content is just excellent. So I hope that you can join.
That sounds fantastic. Now, I want to give an update about the New Zealand National Masters Strategy. Some of you may remember that I was asked to represent Masters on the National Domestic Rowing Committee, and I'm obviously very honoured to have that. I've been progressing an open dialogue with anyone who's interested to understand how the National Federation can improve rowing for masters. And once a month, we have been having open group calls, which I've been publicising through the New Zealand Rowing Masters Facebook group. We've had calls with different topics. So, for example, we've done a topic around how people want to be contacted, and long discussions about joining an email mailing list from the Legion of Rowers, who administer that with groups for North and South Island people, versus people who like Facebook and the sorts of communication that's appropriate for each of those. We also have talked about setting up a Teams app for the entire country for people who want quick fire, slightly more urgent notifications. And we've also talked about regatta publicity and how to find out what regattas have masters category races. Our next topic is going to be around coaching. I am going to have Brian Parr from the Legion of Rowers and Duncan Holland, who is one of the Rowing New Zealand national coach educators, coming on the next call. And together, we'll have a chat about what sorts of things we can offer to masters and what sort of things that masters can put in place in their own clubs to improve the coaching. Now, this is going to be on 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of December, and you'll be able to find the link to join in the Facebook group or contact me directly. Having said all of that, I would be really happy if people in other countries felt they wanted to approach their national federation and see if they could improve the support for masters rowing in their own country. Please get in touch, because it would just give me no end of pleasure to have a really robust national discussion with different countries and different groups to see what we can do, because I think we all know that masters are a growing headcount around the world, and it's important that we are catered for. The flip side of that, of course, is that many national federations find that masters don't join the federation with a racing license or a membership ticket. And of course, by having more people in the conversation, we can then advise them about the sorts of things that would motivate us to join. So I feel that this is a mutually beneficial opportunity.
I think it's just excellent that you're, just brainstorming and getting ideas and, start to move some of these things and empower clubs to also do things on the, grassroots level and, give us masters the attention we need.
We deserve.
We do. But also, setting, creating a model. I think that's what's important here, is that creating a model framework that some other federations can look towards and say, well, how can we take this and adapt it to what's happening in our country? And, there are countries that don't pay much attention to masters at all. Like, for example, in Slovenia, which is such an important rowing country, right? Slovenia is a small country, but we all know it's a Chop, Lucas Pick. So many famous rowers have come from Bled, and there are a lot of masters rowers in Slovenia, many of my friends, and there is not one single masters regatta in Slovenia. All the Slovenia, honestly, none of the regattas in Slovenia include masters events. The masters in Slovenia either go to Trieste, they go to Italian regattas, they cross over, they go through the Karavanken Tunnel and they race in Austria, Klagenfurt, or they go to Croatia and race on the course in Zagreb. They go in Europe, but there is not a single race in Slovenia that includes a masters event, which is pretty incredible considering there's some very, very good masters scholars in Slovenia.
I couldn't agree more.
I know. It's just surprising. Now,
I wanted to highlight my photo for this week. Is a lovely picture of a crew carrying a boat out of their shed and about to rig it on a gorgeous sunny day in autumn. And I picked that up off the Facebook group called Masters Rowing International. So thank you for, I'm sorry, I forget who uploaded it, but it's such a nice picture.
Yeah.
Now, last week's podcast was all about training while caring for kids or elders. And we got some feedback after the show, which I thought I'd read out. Hi, Rebecca and Marlene. I almost started sobbing when you started this podcast chat. I have been the primary caregiver for my 90-year-old father with dementia and multiple cancers since July. We are now at the point where he needs nighttime watch and assistance. And yes, I hired a caregiver for 4 nights after having spent 7+ weeks sleeping on a recliner in 45 to 90-minute segments all night. And then she got COVID. And so now I'm back on the recliner. Needless to say, I'm a tad sleep deprived and lacking the one thing that fuels me, which is routine. The podcast reminded me again what I already know, that I need to recreate routine in the midst of chaos and stay fit and healthy. My easy out is just to throw on my running shoes in the time windows I have, but I don't want to abandon my rowing and the quest to be much better. Thanks a ton. So that was from Sue. And Sue, can I just say, I totally feel for you. You know you're doing the right thing, but like so many of us who have older parents, we have no professional experience in caring for elders.
Yes, and it's a huge responsibility, and I think one of the things that I wrote back was that, we talked about getting on the erg and getting a routine. And as we said, have something you can do at home, because if you need to be nearby, you don't want to be far, but, exercising, stretching, yoga, getting on the erg. I mean, this is really a really good outlet for your stress levels, for example. Bring your cortisol levels down. Moving, breathing, this stimulates all the good endorphins and really do help you cope with these stressful situations. And it's really important to take care of yourself. It's difficult to take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself. So I think having an erg at home, and even if, like Rebecca said, the erg is a great training buddy. And, this way you're nearby to take care of your father's needs, you're doing something for yourself. So this is really a win-win situation, that even if you're just doing 20 minutes at a time, frequency, and you're just going to just do anything, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it doesn't matter. Everything counts in this type of situation.
It totally does. And a useful workout that you can compress is short intervals. If you've never done these before, they're quite straightforward. You do 5 firm, 5 light, 5 times. And then you go into doing 10 firm, 10 light, 5 times. And then you do 15. You get the idea? And you can go right up to 30, but that's a full 45-minute workout. But even if you start with the short ones, because the short ones will warm you up. So if you haven't got time to do a proper warm up, do a little bit of paddling and then just get into it. And short, I'm not quite sure if does this count as high intensity interval training? Possibly does.
Well, yeah, well, it depends. I mean, you could put this in a power category. Like if you're doing short bursts. Okay. Now, if you're going to work at, like, if you say you want to do a strength workout, let's call it that, or a power workout on the erg, they should be short. They should be short. And then you should have for if you're doing a minute on, a minute off, that is not a power workout. It's too long. I'm talking 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds bursts, but then you need 5 times off between each burst. Now you don't have to stop rowing, but you row easy. So if you do 10 seconds, you want to take 50 seconds paddling and then do another one. Or if you're doing 20 seconds, paddle 100 seconds, okay, a minute 40 or something like that. Set it up that you do one on every two minute mark. But if you're going to do a true power workout, they should be short, and you should have enough rest so that you recover your anaerobic CP system. And so you can have some days that you just treat like little strength workouts, and high intensity would be, I would say getting closer to over 45 seconds to a minute, something like that.
Excellent. So there's two little ideas of things that you can build into your own training if you have this seriously reduced amount of time. And obviously you need to be on hand.
Yeah.
But Sue, thank you. And I'm so glad that our podcast last week hit the mark for you. We also had another email from a gentleman he was in the Puget Sound area.
Also out on the islands in Washington.
Yeah, caring for his wife. And again, he then said, and of course, she's just broken her clavicle, so we're heading to hospital. So this kind of unexpected thing is so normal. We got another question where we were asked, is there any place in the Faster Masters training that might specifically map out a good erg program? I've always said I'm not in love with the erg, but I think the private truth of it is that I've never truly learned how to best use it, nor have I ever truly committed to it. And now I am ready. I can put the erg anywhere in my house, and rather than sit and watch movies all night, why not erg? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I erg, I'm always listening to a podcast or one of Rebecca's rowing chats, because I have to keep up on what Rebecca's doing. But I'm always using, if I'm doing a long row, I'm always using that time to, it's me time. I'm using that time to also do some other things, and listen to some things that I might not normally have time to listen to. But our program, in the Faster Masters program, we post 2 programs each month. And what those 2 programs are focused on depends on the training cycle for the peak that we're focused on. Now, we've just completed, November is the end of head racing season for our friends down under, for our North American people who did the virtual races. And the 1K program had wrapped up earlier in the fall. So right now, our program going into December, there's a base program, base preparation for 1K. So that's going to be the program for the people who are going to be focusing on next summer's races. Okay, so that's going into a base phase. The other program is also going into a base phase, but it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be focused on a spring peak. So that might be, I'm going to say spring here. That might be if you're preparing for an erg event that's in March. Perhaps if we have our races in Europe, there's the Heineken Regatta. There's the London Head Races. So we do have a pretty strong group that races in the spring, and I put erg events in that category because they tend to be in March. Mm-hmm. So there is one program that's going to be focusing on that during the winter, and then the other program is going to be focusing on preparation for the summer. Now, each workout has a land version, indoor rowing instructions, and an on-water instructions. Oftentimes, the on-water instructions are by stroke rate, small boats and big boats. So we separate those, and we write the stroke ratings for that. And then also there's the instructions for the indoor rower, because you might be on a Concept 2, an RP3, a water rower. You might be on a different type of indoor rowing machine. And if you do your 20-minute test, you're going to know what your individual paces are for that particular workout.
Of course, the 20-minute test is part of the Faster 5. That's the fitness assessment. And the Faster 5 are the core 5 big principles that you need to learn if you're going to become a really effective masters rower. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're absolutely right, because, that's one of our core, the Faster 5 is our core principles. These are the things that we want you to think about all the time and work towards. And the performance paces are how you individualize your training on the indoor rower. Very important, because you don't want to train too slow for higher intensity, and you don't want to train too fast for low intensity. It's important that you train at the correct paces for the purpose of the workout. And in each workout, we explain what's the purpose of this workout. Why are we doing this? Okay, so every workout, you're going to understand what's the role of this workout in the big picture. And I think that's really important for compliance. I think if you understand why you're doing something, you're much more likely to comply with it. So we've got 2 programs going into December, both base oriented, but they're going to be a little bit different because one is going to aim for a spring peak. The other one's aiming for the summer. And you can choose which version you like. And I mean, you can actually jump between the 2 of them if you really want more excitement. There's, you'll still be working on the same things, but
yeah, you get both of them. So you can go look at them both and have a look at the workouts and decide what you like the look of. I mean, that's cool. In fact, I kind of like that.
Yeah. So you have lots of flexibility in the program. I mean, and we often tell people, we prioritize, we mark the priority sessions. So if you've got to rearrange your schedule, make sure you do those workouts each week, because things come up and you have to take care of things. And, you've got a lot of flexibility to move things around as you need.
For sure. Now, if you're not on the Faster Masters program, here's a little bit of advice of things that you might need to do to adapt for the erg. Now, we all know that there are bad weather days when you can't get on the water. And we also know that we've got lots of listeners who are continuing to row on the water, whether they're COVID restricted or not weather restricted. But on those days when you have to train indoors, there are a couple of things that it's worth knowing as general points of principle. When you look at the erg ratings compared with water ratings, they are not the same. The erg is a heavier training load in general than the water. So just to explain that, a single scull weighs around 14 kgs plus your oars and the rigger. You're going for about maybe 17-ish, maybe a little bit more kgs. That's one athlete carrying the load of around that amount of mass. If you're in a crew boat, you're actually carrying less each, but you've got to take an 8 and divide it by 8 people, plus the weight of the coxswain, plus the weight of the boat, etc. And you can work these things out. But the erg, because it, particularly for fixed head ergs, by that I mean a Concept 2 that is not on slides, or a water rower, or a RP3 where you've locked out the flywheel so that it doesn't shift up and down the slide. When you're on a fixed head erg, the pressure on your body when you change direction at the catch is quite high. And for that reason, we recommend that you always drop the rating 2 points if you're in the erg compared with being on the water. So say you had a workout that was scheduled at 26, you'd be doing it 24. If the workout was scheduled at 20 to 22, you'd be doing it 18 to 20. And that helps to take account of the extra load because you don't want to get injured. But more importantly, you want to have the same training effect on the erg as you would have had on the water.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is the resistance, how you set the resistance and the drag factor, so that, always err on the lighter side, because if you're not rowing on an indoor rower every day, it is a more repetitive motion than when you're in the boat. When you're in the boat, every stroke is a little bit different. You're on water conditions, things are changing. There's a lot more changeability than when you transition onto the indoor rower, where every stroke is a lot more alike one another. So I would always drop the drag factor down. Actually, a drag factor of 8 on the Concept 2 is of 80, is kind of 90 to 80 is a little bit like rowing in an 8 at the speed of an 8, but err on the lighter side versus the heavier side, just to not overstress. Be careful that you don't start feeling aches and pains in your shoulders or your low back. If things start to bother you, just stop. Don't press on beyond that fatigue point.
Yeah, and in fact, I had that exact example this morning. I was actually out in my single, and I had gone around the lake twice, and I paused for a drink, took off again, and suddenly thought, oh my, I am tired. Just That happens.
Yep, sure
And
does.
I then did a whole extra half lap of the lake and then went, no, I really am very, very
I
tired.
know. There's some days when it's just not going to happen. So, and respect it. Just respect it. You're beat. Just go in.
I went in and then I had to get help from my very lovely club mates, just to lift my boat back on the rack. I do actually. Do you have this problem, Marlene, when you have boats that have reverse wing riggers and forward wing riggers, and they're all on racks one above the other, but all with the bow balls in one direction, and you find that you can't get close enough to the rack because the riggers are at different angles?
It's incredibly irritating, in my opinion. What I would do is put the boats in so that all the riggers are lined up, because it really makes it. I mean, I have a front. My boat is an older boat, so. I have a front wing on my Van Dusen, and when somebody puts a rear wing above my boat, you're in a box. It's really irritating. It drives me insane. So at our boat yard, we switch the boats around. So it doesn't look as nice that not all the bow balls are lined up, but we line up all the riggers so that everybody can get out. So that's what we do. But it is, you do have to carry a rear wing boat differently, manipulating it around. I mean, even when you put your oar handles together, like you have to step inside a box to get into your boat, right? So you do have to learn how to manipulate a little bit differently.
Yeah. One of the boat that's immediately below mine has a regular front wing, but it has a backstay on it.
Backstay. Oh, that's the pits too. That's just pits.
Martha, I'm talking to you. No, I'm joking. It was great. My friends helped me and we got the boat on the rack and no damage and no harm done. But it was one of those moments when you're like, I'm holding my arms above my head and I have no strength and I don't want to drop my boat.
Well, I'll tell you a real nightmare story. This, and maybe some other people, maybe some of our listeners will have a nightmare story. When I got my very first boat, okay, this is back when I just graduated from university, and it was a boat that Ted Van Dusen had built. It was boat number 11, and my boat was the sister boat to the boat that Joan Lind rode in the 1976 Olympics. And this was a wonderful boat. It weighed 26 pounds. It was just lovely. However, I rode out of Weld Boathouse, which is the across the river from Newell, which is the Harvard Boathouse. I rode out of Weld Boathouse. And I had to put my boat up on the highest rack. And there were about 8 boats. And I had to carry my boat up this huge platform, this ladder with a platform. I had to lift my boat all the way up on a ladder way over my head to get onto the very top rack. And it was just hair raising every time to take my boat out and put my boat in, that I wasn't going to go flying off this ladder. It was just horrible. So when in doubt, get the shoulder high rack, or I always go for the low racks now, but it was so scary, and I was so inexperienced as a single sculler, and like, this is my boat, and what if I drop it, and what am I going to do?
I remember my first single had canvases. So they were made of a kind of waxed fabric.
Yeah.
And I was, again, really tired because when I was learning to single, I used my arms too much. So my arms would get super tired. And the boat was racked under the bridge at Marlow Rowing Club. And it wasn't a particularly high rack, but instead of having just a V to rest your boat on, it was basically a U that they'd put a canvas strap across, or it was like a cycle inner tube, so a rubber, but the ends weren't protected. And I jagged a hole in the canvas by trying to lift this up and misjudging it. I didn't lift it high enough.
Oh, I know. Those were the days. That was a wonderful boat.
I even got replacement canvas to replace the canvas on my canvas.
I used to do it all. I was the boatman at Boston University for 4 years when I was a student. And Bill Miller, who is a well-known rowing historian, he taught me how to deck boats and refinish boats. And I used to do a lot of that kind of stuff. It was fun.
There's a certain satisfaction, isn't there, in doing your own boat maintenance?
Totally.
Guys, this has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, and Marlene and I are going to sign off for another week. Remember that next week is a private masterclass transitioning to winter. You can only get the URL by joining our newsletter mailing list or signing up fastermastersrowingwinter.eventbrite.co.nz. This has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, the show dedicated to masters athletes who want fun, fitness, and confidence in their rowing. You can become a student of the sport by buying a Faster Masters Rowing program subscription today at fastermastersrowing.com/join. And I will say we are getting several club training groups joining us all together, where the whole group is clubbing together to buy the program because the per head unit cost is really quite low. So till next time.
Yes. Bye-bye. Goodbye, everybody. And dust off your erg.